All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to now get into talking about the Chiefs and their road to the Super Bowl, how they got there. So we'll take you way back to when they opened up the season against the Ravens, and many people looked at that as possibly being a AFC Championship game preview, a potential AFC Championship game preview. I mean, it was a rematch from the previous season. And this was a good game. This was entertaining. This came down to the end. See, that's the common thing. A lot of these games came down to the very end. And this game got us started off with that. So the Chiefs ended up winning that game 27-20. And at the very end of the game, the Ravens were driving. Lamar Jackson, he throws what we thought was a touchdown to Isaiah Likely, but his toe was just out of bounds. And that ended up getting reversed, and the Chiefs ended up winning by 7. Now, if Likely gets that, the Ravens would have went for 2, and who knows what would have happened if the Ravens would have stole a victory there. So you had that. Then you also had the game against the Bengals. Burrow and Mahomes going at it once again, and the Bengals, they were coming off of a loss to the Patriots, and it looked like the Bengals were going to end up winning. Mahomes throws up a prayer on 4th and 16, and it ended up being incomplete, but there ended up being a flag on the play, and that led to a first down. Chiefs get into field goal range. Butker kicks the game winner, and they win 26-25. Then they ended up winning that close game against the Falcons on that Sunday night, 22-17. The Falcons had their opportunities, and they go for it with Bijan Robinson. They run it with him, and the Chiefs read that play beautifully, and they stopped the Falcons, and they ended up winning that game as well. So they were 3-0. Then against the Chargers, they win 17-10 to improve to 4-0. However, they did lose Rashee Rice in that game. Mahomes was trying to make a play, and he ended up colliding with Rashee Rice, because I think there was a turnover on that play, and Rashee Rice ended up getting hurt, and they ended up losing him for the year. And Xavier Worthy, he scored his 3rd touchdown of the season. He had a couple against the Ravens to open up the year. We didn't really get to talk about him actually in the opener, but he's going to play a big role in the Super Bowl, and we'll talk about him a little bit later when we go over the possible Super Bowl MVPs. But yeah, Worthy scored a touchdown in the game, and yeah, that was a pretty close game. Another close game, another one-score game. Then the Chiefs actually ended up winning by a couple of scores against the Saints. They were versing an old buddy in Derek Carr, and they ended up winning that game 26-13. Mahomes 331 yards on the day. He had no touchdowns and a pick. Juju Smith-Schuster, I think this was his first game back, making his return to the Chiefs, with the injuries, to Rashee Rice. And he had 7 receptions for 130 yards. So he picked up right where he left off with the Chiefs, and the Chiefs went to 5-0. Then they went on a bye. They came out, and we had the Super Bowl rematch against the 49ers. And yeah, Brock Purdy did not play well in that game. I think what did he throw? 3 interceptions in the game? Yeah, he had 3 interceptions in the game. Mahomes wasn't great either. He had 2 interceptions, and he threw for 54 yards. Kareem Hunt had 2 touchdowns in the game, and they improved to 6-0. And the 49ers dealt with a lot that week. I mean, Deebo Samuel tried to play, but he was dealing with, that was when he had pneumonia. And I think Brandon Ayuk got hurt in the game. It wasn't a good game for the Niners. That was a very forgettable game. But the Chiefs picked up the win there. They picked up a win against the Raiders. The Raiders played the Chiefs tough this year. A couple of one-score games. I mean, the second one. I mean, the second game they played against them, they had a good chance to win that game, 19-17. But you had the bobbled snap at the end of that game. They played the Buccaneers in Week 9. Chiefs won that in overtime. Kareem Hunt scored the game-winning touchdown. That game was back and forth, and it came down to the coin toss. Mahomes and the Chiefs get the ball. They go right down the field. They score, and they win the game. Then against the Broncos, you had the Broncos at the doorsteps of winning, and the Chiefs ended up blocking, the potential Will Lutz game-winning field goal, and they lose 16-14. But then they suffer their first loss of the season the following week against the Bills and Josh Allen. Josh Allen picks up that first down on 4th and 2 and puts them up 30-21. Mahomes had a couple of picks in the game. One of them was at the end, just trying to get something going. But the Chiefs did suffer their first loss of the year. And, I think people thought after that, hey, maybe this could be the Bills' year. But that turned out not to be the case. They played a close game against the Panthers. The Chiefs were up by a couple of scores in that game, and this kind of showed you something about the Panthers. The ability to come back and tie the game, but, Mahomes led a drive down the field. They kicked the game winner, and they won 30-27. They beat the Raiders 19-17. That was a close game. The Raiders had an opportunity, like I said, and then, the fumble at the end of the game. Chiefs recovered it, and the Raiders lose a close one. Then they beat the Chargers 19-17 the following week. That was the doink off the upright, and it went in. And that just goes to show you that, there is some luck on the side of the Chiefs. Because it's just, you get the block field goal, then you get a game-winning field goal like that. And a lot of great teams get a little bit of luck on their side. And this was no different here. But yeah, they won another close game against the Chargers. Then they won 21-7 against the Browns. Mahomes got a little banged up in the game. And, Carson Wentz had to finish it out, which was the right move because the Browns' offense was just doing nothing. And, their quarterbacks did not do well. You had 3 interceptions by Jameis Winston in the game, and then DTR had an interception in the game as well, and a couple of fumbles too. I mean, the Browns, they turned the ball over constantly in this game. So, yeah, taking Mahomes out was the right move. So that happened, and then this is when I thought the Chiefs started to get it going. These next 2 weeks against the Texans and the Steelers offensively. So they beat the Texans 27-19. Mahomes had a rushing touchdown in the game. I believe Xavier Worthy also had another touchdown. Kareem Hunt had a touchdown. Yeah, Worthy had a touchdown in the game as well. This was the game that Tank Dell got hurt in, which was unfortunate. But yeah, the Chiefs ended up winning the game 27-19. And then against the Steelers, this is when I said, yeah, they're starting to flip that switch. Because they got Hollywood Brown back, I believe, for this game. And they just looked good. Yeah, Hollywood Brown did play in this game. He only had 4 receptions for 46 yards. Actually, did he come back in the Texans game? Why do I feel like he came back for the Texans game too? Oh yeah, he did. So he did come back for that game. But yeah, no, 29-10 over the Steelers. This is when they started to get it going. And also, I forgot to mention, they did get DeAndre Hopkins at this point, and he had a couple of actually, yeah, I'm like way past it because he had a good game against the Buccaneers. He had a couple of touchdowns in that game. But yeah, they have a lot of veteran wide receivers going into this game against the Eagles. And like I said, against the Steelers, they looked really good. I mean, the Steelers looked flat, but the Chiefs looked like they were starting to round into form at the right time. So they won 29-10. Then they rested their starters. They lose 38-0 to the Broncos. I mean, there's really no shame in that. That ended up being their second loss of the year. Now, if that was their starters playing the whole game and they had to play for something and they lost 38-0, yeah, then I would have more to say. But they rested their guys. They weren't really playing for anything. So, yeah, they allowed the Broncos to take advantage of that, win that game, and get into the playoffs. And then we get to the playoffs, and, they put a lot of pressure on C.J. Stroud. Got sacked 8 times. And, the Chiefs did just enough. Mahomes didn't have a monster game. Kelsey did have a monster game. What did he have in that? He had 7 receptions for 117 yards and a touchdown. Chiefs ended up winning that game 23-14. And then, of course, we get to the AFC Championship game, and they win that 32-29 over the Bills. Back and forth game, very competitive. And They were able to get the win at the end. Mahomes hit Samaje Perine on that first down. The Bills don't get an opportunity to get the ball back. They did have their chances, but they were not able to capitalize. And the Chiefs ended up winning, and they are back in the Super Bowl. So that's kind of a overview on a recap on their season. And like I said, the offense struggled at times during the year. Mahomes, he threw for 3,900 yards, 26 touchdowns, 11 picks. I'm waiting for Mahomes to get back to, when he would throw 30 plus, 40 plus. The first year that he was a starter, he threw 50 touchdowns. But, he's kind of had to adapt because of, some of the guys that have left over the years. But, look, who cares? I mean, if he wins the Super Bowl, it doesn't matter what kind of regular season he had. I mean, he'd much rather have Super Bowls than MVPs. So, yeah, no, and we'll see how this game goes. We'll see how this game goes coming up. But the Chiefs finished 15-2. I mean, the Broncos' loss, again, that came at the hands of them resting their guys. Had their starters played the whole game, probably would have went differently. But they're 15-2, and like I said, they got an opportunity to make history coming up. So, yeah, that's the Chiefs' season overview. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we will talk about the Eagles and their journey to the Super Bowl. What happened throughout the year? How did they get to this point? We'll take a look back on what was the Eagles season when we return from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.